Hey there, future celeb, and welcome to How to Be Famous with Whitney Euland. I'm your host, Whitney Euland. Now, I'm a big believer that the world would be a better place if more good-hearted people were able to make a massive impact. And if fame is calling to you, then there is an audience for you, and I'm here to show you how to find it. In this show, we are diving into the art of becoming a self-made celebrity. And no, you do not need $1 million ad budget or a team of talented agents. You already have the power inside of you, and I'm here to show you how to unlock it. I'm here to help the talented artists, creatives, and influencers tap into what I call celebrity energy so that you can become the magnet for the opportunities, fame, and success that you know that you were born for. But we're not here just for fame's sake. We're about making a positive impact, sharing your unique voice, and ultimately connecting to like-minded souls who also want to make a massive impact. So join me as we explore the stories, secrets, and strategies to help you shine brighter and leave your mark on this world. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and entertained, because this process is really about turning your dreams into a reality and finding the audience that is obsessed with you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and together we will embark on the journey where I show you how to be famous. Hello. Welcome to a live call Q&A with How to Be Famous. I'm your host, Whitney Euland. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to get into y'all's questions. For those of y'all who are on TikTok, welcome. I'm also live on Zoom. Zoom is where it's the easiest for me to track questions. So in the future, if you want to join us on live on Zoom, you can head to the link in my bio at the very bottom. If you go to my free book club, that's where you're going to get the Zoom link. So I would love to hear, though, first off, where are y'all tuning in from today? Love to know where you're at, what you're working on. Hello, Haley Ringo Price. I just saw that you booked an amazing role. Congratulations. Haley is someone that she and I went to high school together, which is so fun. Okay, so we have a guest from Liverpool. Amazing. Where is everyone else from? North Carolina, normally New York, but in Canada at the moment. So fun. I don't think I've ever been to Canada. Minnie in Paris. Hi. You know I love Paris. Cozumel, Italy. Hello. England, Costa Rica. Sending love from Orlando. This is so fun. I love this about the internet now, is that those of y'all who want to be famous, you literally don't, Texas, I'm a Texas girly. You don't have to necessarily live in New York or LA in order to be famous. That's what's amazing. Thank you. Love my work from London. Awesome. Well, today, first off, again, just to mention, if you want to join the Zoom link, that's where I answer the most questions. And the link to do that is at the bottom of my bio. It's called the Celebrity Energy Book Club. Once you join, you can get the Zoom link. It's easier for me to answer questions from there. So today, though, in my book club, what I like to do is go over a book of the month. So this month, the book was The Four Agreements, and I have a little bit of a hot take on this one. So I'm excited to talk about that. I also wanted to answer your questions about the How to Be Famous starter pack. Those of y'all who are on my email list know that there is a special deal going on right now where when you sign up by midnight tonight, you're going to also get an additional bonus. So I wanted to answer any questions that y'all have on that. As well as, of course, just any celebrity energy, any How to Be Famous questions that are coming your way. This call is really a call just for my community to support y'all, to give you as much information as I can, because I want to make this work as accessible as possible, because I'm such a big believer that we need more good-hearted artists, creatives, and influencers to have a voice. And because I think that we are the best people in the world, and we're always thinking about other people, we're thinking about how our actions impact other people, we're thinking about the global ramifications of things, we're thinking about how we're perceived, and that I think makes us the best candidates for being famous. So thank you so much. So what we're going to do is answer any and all questions, but I guess before it's giving goddess, thank you. Yeah, I actually got ready today, which is so fun. It's something I'm trying to do more of. So let's see. So what questions, if y'all want to start dropping questions, feel free. But first I want to talk about my controversial hot take on this book, The Four Agreements. So if you've been on any kind of the spiritual side of TikTok, this is a book that so many people recommend. Some of my favorite people in the world recommend this book, and they're like, this book changed my life. So go ahead and drop in the comments if y'all actually had a chance to read this book. I would love to hear your thoughts. the personal heaven side and how it can be linked to fame. Are you talking about in the book specifically? Because is that, I don't remember. Okay. So give me a little bit of a remembrance, because I did finish this one a while ago. The personal heaven, when they say that, is it, so, okay, let me give y'all a backstory. So Sandra, I'm curious also, what did you think about the book? So many people love this book. I personally did not. And let me tell you why. So there are things that I do like from this book, but there's also things that I think can't, it's a double-edged sword. And I think that this needs additional nuance in order for this to be, okay. Yeah. So you can either live in your personal hell or your personal heaven. Yeah. So we'll definitely address that. So, I think depending on how much information you have and also your current level of awareness with spirituality is really going to impact how this book lands for you. So, you're trying not to take things personally. Okay, yeah. So a few things that I really liked. That's so funny. Someone just started this knowing without that it was the book a month. That's what happens, right? So this is perfect though. Is it Rebe? Because or Reeb, I'm not sure, but this is going to be great for you to have this context as you're just starting this book. So this book shares, again, is called The Four Agreements, and I think that those agreements in general are pretty helpful, but I do want to give a caveat. So for me, I don't know if y'all know this, but I was raised Mormon, which for me was a very maladaptive religion that really controlled my mind and coerced me into having beliefs that were not helpful. That being said, I'm a huge believer, and I know this is a very controversial take, but I believe that religion can start with a good intent, and it also can be weaponized to manipulate people. That has been my experience with it. And what I mean when I say that is I want you to think about like a love bomber, someone who is a manipulative, like abusive person. The way that they get, like, if you've ever talked to someone who has been in an abusive relationship, you might hear the things that their partner did and be like, why did you stay? The reason that they stayed is because at the beginning there is love bombing. There is this amount of like, oh my God, you're amazing, I love you, I've never been with anyone like you, I've never gotten as good of, like, our sex is better than with anyone else, like our just these different things of like, I've never felt this way, you complete me. They also, I talked about this in a previous episode about personality disorders. They're really good at mirroring people. So they're going to get a lot of information from you and make you feel safe, even though it's not reciprocal. Now, the same thing can happen with religion. So what happens is, again, when you have this love bombing, you psychologically, your mind is getting controlled. And I will just say the reason, like, actually that I'm so passionate about the work that I do as a coach is because I was like literally brainwashed, to have certain beliefs about the world and about the way that heaven worked and the way that, yeah, you were raised in Mormon too, so you get it. It's a whole deconstruction process. I highly recommend the book, Leaving the Fold. I would like really, really check that out. So, but basically what happens is in these religions, religion is based on spirituality. And I would even argue that with this book, what happens is what I truly believe and have found to be true is that we all have access to divinity and we all have access to spirituality. And we do not actually need a religion to give that to us. Now, I think some religions, and we don't always know until we're deep inside of them, some of them are people, like I would say this book is a good example. This person found, Miguel Ruiz, he found access to his spirituality. Okay. And that's amazing. And the thing with it is I believe that it is intended to look and feel and be perceived differently by every single person. Because if the answers were all there, then it would just be science. Right. And I believe that it is our like duty on this earth to find access to our own spirituality and to connect to ourselves, right? And connect to a higher power, a higher being, a source, God, universe, whatever you see. That's what perpetuates our continual growth and our continual evolution. Now, I would say that most religions, it is someone like this author who found their access to spirituality. And then what they did was they're like, let me put my spiritual beliefs on you. let me create a system so that you can access spirituality in the same way. Now, one of my biggest issues with Mormonism is that they said, here's the way that you access spirituality, but here is also the answers that you are going to get. So it is not actually a pure access to spirituality. It is a manipulated access to spirituality. And so that is where a lot of this is going to can become maladaptive. So again, if you are not someone, the Mormons are always successful. They are and they aren't. But that is a big part of the culture in America, but across around the world. It is something that a lot of people are actually very impoverished. And that is also what I think is part of the imbalance and the cycle of abuse, is that a lot of the leadership in Mormonism is very wealthy and is very affluent. And so you're going to inherently trust them and see them as a authority figure. And so like there were even times growing up that I like, and you're taught part of this. And this is where, again, the system could have started as something really positive of, let me help you find your truth. But then it can become maladaptive if it's like, and this is the way to do it, and this is how, and this is what answers you are going to receive. So why are all Mormons in Utah all the same? It's because we're all related. Like in like if you go back far enough, because all of our ancestors crossed the plains together. But it is a buying your way to spirituality, buying someone else's point of view of spirituality. Yeah. So I think, and you know, with religion, I actually personally have found that actual purchase and exchange for spiritual knowledge, meaning paying a shaman, paying like a Reiki practitioner, paying a coach, to me, that has actually created a more equal dynamic than in religion, because in religion there is like everyone is volunteering, which sounds very idyllic, and yet because of that it creates this weird power dynamic with it. So where I would say, like for me, like I actually had a lot of struggles starting my coaching business and moving into a group format, because I was like, oh my God, did I accidentally start a cult? Whereas it was like, no, there are very basic rules that qualify something as like a cult versus a like not cult, and part of it is consent, part of it is opting in and opting out, and that is something with religion a lot of people don't have the option to actually do. For example, I was just telling my mom this week, I was born Mormon, so it's not something I consented into, and then I was asked to consent, but not until I was only 8 years old when they asked me, do you want to get baptized? I personally do not think an 8-year-old that is not consent. That is not someone who's actually old enough to make that decision for themselves. So anyway, all of this to say, I think there is a lot of beauty in this book. And I think do not take this with a grain, or take all of it and take all spiritual leanings with a grain of salt. So that's what I want to say. And then the other thing is, if there's something that you, what about the quote that something like, you never know you're in a cult? Yeah. So that's why I think it's really important to first off get really clear on your intuition, because your intuition will know, and your intuition and your body will tell you that something is off. So I had debilitating anxiety. I had GI issues. I was suicidal for like multiple points. That was my body's way of being like, something's not okay. This is not okay. This is not okay. And then eventually I started to learn about the signs of them, which I talked about in my last episode. So anyway, the other thing with this though, is I think that if you have been raised in any type of abusive situation, you have to be careful with these books. So that could be an abusive relationship, religion, family dynamic, anything like that. And so what we want to do is, if you have, then you're always going to feel like everything is your fault, and it creates this dynamic of thinking that you are, subordinate basically. And so if you take this book too far, and I'm saying this from personal experience, some of the things with this, so like we're going to talk about, we can either live in our own personal hell or personal heaven. So let me just give you an example for this. A lot of this book is about being like, stay in your own lane, right? We're not in charge of how other people think. We're not in charge of how other people act. We get to decide how our experience is. And we get to decide like how we show up in the world. Now, that's an amazing principle that I do believe is true if and when you are not in a cycle of abuse. Does that make sense? So what we want to do is like, because if you are, then these principles are just going to lead you further down the rabbit hole of thinking everything is your fault. So for example, when I was in Mormonism and I am getting these teachings that are teaching me, oh, like, you know, take things like my body and my subconscious was like, this doesn't feel good. This isn't safe. And yet I'm getting this messaging, similar things to this, that are like, it's all in your control. This is all your responsibility. And so then I was trying to like adapt the way I was thinking, which actually, instead of saying, oh, actually this thing needs to go. So that's my big caveat with all of this. Should you have a different account? No, definitely not. So that's my caveat with all of this, is that we want you to, and they do talk about this, right? Is about the whole, like, if someone is not showing up the way that you want or intend them to, you do have to set boundaries and remove those people. But I think that that part was not emphasized enough in this book, considering most of the people that I work with have come from some, like, not always. And if this is not you, then do not say that this precludes you from being famous. So, however, I will say so many of the artists, creatives, and influencers that I work with have come from some sort of trauma, whether that was losing a family member. You know, I mean, all of us, our society is just baked in trauma, right? So if you are someone who is coming from an abusive background, then, which is what a lot of my clients are, that's why I don't necessarily think this is the number one answer for everyone. But let's get into it. So the first thing is to be impeccable with your word. Now, a couple of the things that I like to that I just want to highlight that I really liked about this is that being impeccable with your word, a lot of the time that means, and what we need to start doing, and I think a great interpretation of this is no people pleasing. Okay. So if you want to be famous, a celebrity is someone who likes who they are, what they do, and how they do it. You have to be so authentic, and you have to strip away all of the things telling you that you are wrong, telling you that your opinions are invalid, things like that. And so that's where we want to be really impeccable with our word, in terms of, like, if you don't like something, don't lie about it. If something feels uncomfortable, then say something, right? If there is something that you that is important to you, speak up. This also talks about not talking about oh, this was actually a part that I didn't like. In this section, it talks a lot about, I think it was this section, talking about gossip and how they really hated the word gossip. I think gossip is something that has been a word that is weaponized against women, when really women need to, and obviously I'm making a broad sweeping statement. This can include all genders and expressions and all of the things. But I think specifically when we talk ill of gossiping, that can be targeted towards women as a way of silencing them, when really women, and especially if we are, again, talking about systems of abuse, you actually do need to communicate, and you need to be able to air what's happening in order to have someone reflect back to you, oh, that's not okay. So yes, I'm like a huge believer in, like, don't just shit talk people to, like, have a rise and to, like, feel included. But I do think that being able to that again, if it goes too extreme, can lead to being silenced, which is not helpful. Okay, the second agreement is do not take anything personally. So this is where I think, again, we just want to add a little bit of nuance in terms of, so I think that the helpful takeaway is that no one's behavior is about you. Okay, it is about them. That does not mean, though, that anyone can get away with any behavior without consequences, right? So anytime that someone is taking a behavior, even if it is extremely, like, manipulative or abusive or whatever, it doesn't actually have anything to do with you. And that doesn't mean that you should not remove yourself from those kinds of situations. And I think something that I did like, I don't remember exactly where it was, but they were, and it does also talk about, like, using that first agreement, which is, you know, being impeccable with your word, is not lying to yourself, right? Not diminishing yourself, not telling yourself you're a bad person, right? But also this talks about not taking anything personally in terms of the negative thoughts that come into your head. And it talks about when we think that, like, let's say someone is mean to us and we personalize it, then Yeah. So someone, and Gabby says, I think decentering ourselves from others, people's behavior is so important so that we don't take her behavior personally. 100%. And I think we also just want to like take a step back and be like, okay, and is this a pattern or is this okay? Because a lot of the work of becoming famous, your circle is going to get a lot smaller before your audience gets a lot bigger. That's a pattern that I have seen time and again, is that it's a lot about finding the ways that, or finding the community of people. And a lot of the time, y'all, it starts with just believing the possibility that the people in your life can be loving and supportive. It's not about, I think that fame and celebrity gets a bad reputation because people think that we're talking about, thinking that you're better than other people. And that's really not the case at all. It's just believing that you can be treated fairly and believing that people can be supportive and encouraging in your life. And so a lot of the times it does require, and like this month in my group coaching program, my VIP program, the Self-Made Celebrity, we've been doing a Quantum Leap month, which is specifically around the 4 relationships that are going to keep you stuck from creating levels of fame. If you haven't heard these, the first one is going to be your relationship to your family. The second is your relationship to your friends and community. The third is to your romantic partners. And the fourth one, which we're tackling tomorrow, is your relationship to money. The reason that we have to look at these is because the way, like, what's actually going to be blocking you from creating as much fame as you want is going to be your ability to be perceived in a really, really authentic way. So what happens is if you think that, oh, like even last week, like I shared this with y'all, that this last week was the first time that I ever spoke out against Mormonism in a public way. And my mom was like, she's still like a member of the faith and she was upset by it. Right. And so it led to some conversations and led to me saying, like, I think this podcast episode is not for you, and us both saying, like, we can agree to disagree. Our relationship is really important. And I'm really lucky that that is something my mom is willing to do. She's like so loving, like the most loving person. But it does take, right? Like, setting those boundaries and getting to the place, like, I'll be honest, like for me, it's like, so my dad died in 2016. And it's so much easier for me to write about things that I know he would be upset by, or to make content about things that he would be upset by, than my mom, simply because my mom is still alive, right? Like you have to, I heard this somewhere that like, you're not a real writer unless you can write it like your parents are dead, right? Like being able to say the things that would upset them, and that your family, or like looking at like whose opinion are you afraid of hearing? And a lot of the time, our brains are even going to hide what is actually important for us, and it's going to skip past topics. Like what ends up happening a lot of the time, y'all will hear this on a podcast episode that I'm releasing soon with one of my former clients. A lot of the time, what's going to actually make you pop off is right under your nose. It's like right there. It is like clear as day. And something as a coach is I can see that really clearly for people when like it takes me like 10 seconds to be like, oh, this is your message. This is your story. That's not usually the hard part. The hard part is usually why you aren't sharing it. And that's what I help my clients do. Obviously, I do a good amount of pointing those things out, but then that takes 10 seconds for me. The work that I do with my clients in my mentorship program is then getting rid of those beliefs that are keeping them, and the fears and the blocks that are keeping you from actually sharing that in an authentic way, and sharing it in a way that it's actually, how do I say this? That it's actually magnetic and it's actually attractive. So for example, last week, that was the first time that I said publicly that I was going to start talking about Mormonism. That post, I don't think really popped off because I'm not full, like that's my first time talking about it. It's going to, like, even now, my energy is so much more open talking about it than like the podcast I released last week. It takes time, but it also takes a very specific process, which is the 6-step process in my program. Both that I teach my clients and implement with them in the Self-Made Celebrity, but also in my course, the Self-Made, or the Starter Pack, which again is on sale through the end of today. Well, it's not on sale through the end of the day, but if you purchase today, you will get access to an additional course today. So anyway, all of this to say, let's go on to the third agreement. The third one is don't make assumptions. So this is when we make assumptions, this is kind of like that. Like I feel like this goes two ways, right? On the one hand, this is the people who like when we like meet someone and we're immediately like, this person is probably my soulmate or whatever. And then like that can lead to a bunch of missed expectations, but then also making negative assumptions about people and assuming negative things about people in your life. So something also just to that I liked about this was talking about the that well, I guess I think this actually was in the last one. I was just going to say to not personalize the thoughts that are coming through your brain as well, because, and not making assumptions that the thoughts in your mind necessarily are true. Does that make sense? So, and then the last one is always do your best. So that's the fourth agreement. Hey, Lori, thank you. So this is like the fourth agreement that he says is just to always put your full, like, don't half-ass anything, whole ass everything, right? And that's where, yeah, don't get lost in the story. So really to get into celebrity, I think that, you know, again, a celebrity, I think one of the negative sides that people see about celebrity is they think, you know, okay, how do I say this? I think one of the negative things that people perceive about celebrities is that they don't have to follow conventional rules of society. And yet I would argue that our current society is pretty fucked up, and that if we had more good-hearted people not adhering to those laws of society, then they could actually pave a way for a better way for life to happen and for the world to operate. So I think that with all of this, when you can't just half-ass one thing in your life and expect everything else to work out, because celebrity energy, it's an energy, yes, that you can turn on and turn off, but also being a celebrity is a quantum leap. It creates results in every area of your life. And so it's going to, if you're half-assed, like the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So even if you're like, I'm giving my whole ass to my career, but I'm totally half-assing it in the way that I treat myself and my relationships and the way that I show up to the gym and like all of those things, it's like your energy is the sum is greater than the whole of its parts, meaning the entire energy is going to grow as you are as you focus on doing your best in every area of your life. Okay, don't make assumptions confuse me a little, because a lot of people in spirituality talk about the law of assumption. Yeah. So, and I think, Nate, that's something also just to remember, that like with law of assumption, I am a big believer that like you need to act like you, how do I say this? I'm not the biggest believer in fake it till you make it. I'm a believer in create the mindset and create the identity of who you actually intend to be, and then start living that way until the future catches up with you, which is a way of saying the law of assumption, if that makes sense. But I'm not a fan of just like, oh, if I like, for example, when I first started this, I was like, oh, a celebrity would work out at Equinox, so I'm going to get an Equinox membership, even though I couldn't really afford it. Like taking that action and assuming like, and like obviously I made the payments every month, but it wasn't maybe the best use of my money at the time. So I think that there can be a little bit of confusion there. And for me, what I have access, and like, again, this is something I just want to remind you with all of this and with spirituality, is just remembering that spiritual teachers are all filtering, and myself included. I mean, I don't actually teach a lot of spirituality, but I forget that because I was raised Mormon, that there is, I don't actually know if I fully finished the circle on this thought, but the reason that religions like Mormonism worked and why I stayed in it for so long is because there is truth in it, right? And so because there is truth, that's kind of like the love bombing of a relationship, then all of the bad things were confusing and justifiable. Now, the same thing, though, is true. And so that's why for me, like in my teaching, I'm not as much of a spiritual teacher, but I like to give you the tools to access your own spirituality. So I think that's just something to remember, Nate, is just kind of taking all of it with a grain of salt. If there's something that doesn't resonate with you, then it's always your power and your prerogative and your authority to challenge it. So I commend you for even like bringing that up. But I think that's also why we sometimes get conflicting things. So I agree, though. I think that with the not making assumptions, I don't know that this book is necessarily guided towards creating a future version as much as maintaining peace in the current moment. Does that make sense? Which I know is like the mind fuck of the century, to be like, how do I like maintain this current? How do I live in the present while also living in the future? So, um, yes, yeah. So Ariel says they use our most innate peace, soul essence, and manipulate beliefs around it for control. Exactly. So, yeah, let me know if that helps or if you have further questions, Nate. So Christine, how do I sign up for your VIP coaching? So I have a link in my bio if you want to check that out. We're actually starting, so this is something, a good little segue is that next month we're actually going to be doing March. I love to do this. So March is going to be Rich and Famous Month. So we're not only going to be talking about creating fame, but also creating money, because at the end of the day, money is still such a big resource in our society. And there are a lot of, I saw this, actually, I brought him on. There's a creator. I don't remember it's like existential. I'm Brendan, you're going to have to let me know what your handle is. It should just be your name because you have such a fantastic name. Brendan Lemon, has this post about Meat Space, right? And how, he's created this huge following, but he hasn't been able to create the money to actually match that. And they're really like, yes, and like having the resource of fame is such a powerful resource. And I also think that you're going to have a lot more power when you have money. So if you join today, you're not only going to get access to this last month's all of the replays of the Quantum Leap, as well as tomorrow, or I'm sorry, our next Quantum Leap calls on Thursday. But then you'll also be joined by our, or you'll get access to the Rich and Famous Month, which is March. Okay, that's everything that I wanted to talk about on the 4 agreements. We have half an hour left, so let's answer questions. I love that. I'm actually bringing if y'all know Nadia, College, I don't actually know if that's how you say her last name, but she is the cutest. She's coming on my podcast. We're recording tomorrow to do a human design deep dive. Okay. Should we be conscious of our celebrity energy when being perceived, or should it just be a subconscious knowing that we don't have to worry or think too much about? So Nate, there's different stages of learning. So the first one is going to be, I want you to think about like, we'll use the scale of like riding a bike. The first one is going to be unconscious incompetence. That's when you're bad at something and you don't even realize it. So that's when you're like, you're not even aware that you're bad at riding a bike. Okay. Now the second step is going to be conscious competence. This is when you know how to ride the bike, but you're like actively really, or no, how do I say this? You want to ride the bike, but you don't know how. Then we move into conscious competence, which is when you know how to ride the bike correctly, but you have to like really focus on it and be like, okay, now the leg, now the next one, like keep moving. And then the last step is going to be unconscious competence. And that's when you don't even think about it anymore. So this is going to be the same is true of any skill, but also with celebrity energy. Whereas at first you are going to be actively aware of it, and then it's just going to become your state of being. If you haven't checked out the celebrity energy hypnosis, I think that's a really great tool for teaching your subconscious brain to just access it without having to focus on it. But let me know if that answers your question. Okay, I'm gonna hop over. Would I recommend hiring a publicist as a new actor? No. Is celebrity energy about making yourself seem more interesting than usual, being mysterious, or is it different for everyone? So it is definitely not about trying to make yourself seem anyway. It's about just being who you authentically are and letting people see that. So and this is a place where like, human design can be helpful to see this, but the way that I want to break this down for you is there's 3 ways that you can become famous or be what you can be known for. So the first one is that people, like, basically what we want to do is have people fall in love with you. They want to either be you, date you, or be your best friend. So with all of those, and this is again something I coach my clients on in the mentorship, is because a lot of times they're like, wait, I think I'm all of them, or they're like everyone's not everyone, but most people are like, I want to be the romantic, like the one that everyone falls in love with. And I'm like, I hear you, but that's actually like, we all have all of those 3 things, but what you want to focus on is the one that's like the biggest, like the gut instinct. So for me, it is people want, like, it's like aspirational. And so for me, when I share parts of my story, people aren't usually like, oh, I wish I was going through a divorce and raised in a cult, but they are like intrigued by it. I don't have to create that mystery. I just have to share that that's where I'm actually at. But I do give off a pretty mysterious vibe. So anytime though, something that you could look for, anytime that I'm like, ooh, I should do like influencing, I should do get ready for me, I should show you behind the scenes, people don't really care about it. Like, because that's not what's actually authentic to me. And that's not what my audience is drawn to me for. Now, the trifecta again is when you're going to be all three of those. I think Taylor Swift, Beyonce are great examples of people you want to be, date, and be their best friend. Although I don't know how many people, like, I want to be Beyonce's best friend to learn from her, but I also know I would be like afraid to be in her presence. So I think like that's something just to maybe start looking at is it's definitely not trying to make yourself seem mysterious or seem interesting, but if that's who you authentically are, then that's naturally going to be a byproduct of you staying into that's going to be a byproduct of you tapping into that authenticity. Okay, let me read this one. I quantum leaped with your hypnosis and things fell apart. My views grew from 200 to 2K and then it stagnated. Yeah. So Sandra, you hit a ceiling. Congratulations. So what happens is our brains have like an internal thermostat, which is like, this is what's safe and this is what's not. It's basically like if you think of a thermostat, anytime it gets too hot, the air conditioning is going to kick on. Anytime it gets too cold, the heat's going to kick on. So your brain, you got to that 2K and then your brain is like, oh, we need to go back down. Or we just need to plateau and stay here. There's something about that 2K that feels safe or unsafe. This is something I help my clients with a lot, is that actually the first 10,000 followers is a lot of the time the hardest. But even there are people like, I'm blanking on her last name right now. Her name is Katie. I was on her podcast and when we first reached out, she was like, I actually don't think I want to have you on my podcast right now because I'm taking a break from TikTok. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, well, let's not worry about it. Just let me, she ended up signing up for my course, or I gave her access to my course or something. And she did my hypnosis and now she's popping the fuck off. And she was like, it's so funny because her brain, I think she had plateaued at like 30K and then she jumped up another 10K in the last like month. And she just commented on my post. She's like, oh my God, like that hypnosis changed everything for me. So, and I don't know if she did the other course as well, but my guess is, Sandra, that there's something about 2,000 views that feels safe and we just need to break through that threshold. That's why I say fame is like a video game. So there's new levels, new devils. First, it's going to feel like, ooh, that 2K, like that, your thermostat was at 200 and now it's at 2,000, right? But there was a time where that 200 was all that felt safe. And now it's like, and as you grow, it's the same thing. This is the same thing that happens with money. There's a certain amount of money that you feel your brain, your subconscious feels safe and comfortable having. And in order to create more, you have to do the subconscious rewiring to get to a place that the higher levels feel safe. Even though it's something that your brain or that your soul wants, if it's new, if it's different, if it's more expansive, if it's going to add new vulnerability, if more eyes are going to be on you, your brain is going to perceive it as a threat. So, let me know if that's helpful, if that answers. Okay. I had shared some of my story with you yesterday on Instagram, and I have been tapping into celebrity energy, and I don't think I have imposter syndrome, but my blockage are areas like connections or production with music and getting myself noticed by the music industry. So Taylor, I'm going to give you some tough love because you're here and I don't think it would serve you for me not to. It's not helpful for you to have this thought, no, I don't have imposter syndrome, because there is some thought. And like, again, I'm saying this from a place of love. And I hope that this is, it's not it's none of my business how it's received, but if you do receive it, it will change everything. So what happens so often, Taylor, is that so many people think that what they need is connections or they need eyes on them. But the truth is there are subconscious blocks that do not feel safe being perceived. So your brain might be, and this happens if people are like, oh, I just need eyes on me. I just need X, Y, and Z. So there's how do I say this? Okay. So there's two different levels of fame that I see people at. The first one is when they're first getting started and they believe, no, I just need a gatekeeper to get me in front of these people. I just need a manager. I just need a label. I just need X, Y, and Z. The truth is there is some subconscious belief that you likely have, which is that an authority figure has more power than you do. Okay. And so a lot of the work when you're just getting started is about changing the way that your brain works so that you believe that you are the authority figure. And creating that audience, you have to, like in this day and age, it's sadly just not enough unless you are like wildly connected. If you are, then all you need to be is magnetic to those gatekeepers, like for sure. If you don't have those connections or you don't have an audience, then you need to build one for yourself. Create a fan base and then leverage that into calling in more of those authority figures or more of those gatekeepers. So what happens a lot of the time though is, again, when people are first starting out, they think, I need an authority figure. I need this person with access, but that actually is keeping you safe, because if you believe that someone else needs to give you permission, then you don't have to go out and create your own audience and build your own following. Building your own following is way more vulnerable. It's because, think about this, like, I wanted to be on a television show. It would be so much easier for me to go home to Thanksgiving and say, yeah, Netflix said yes to me. I'm making this show with all of these things, because that would feel important, right? Whereas if I create a following, I have to say, no, I think I'm important. I think my voice matters. And then you have to show up from that state and you have to create your own following. So the first thing that I see is people not believing that they actually can build the career on their own. You need to have the self-concept that you can do this without gatekeepers. There are plenty of people who have. Now, the next level, this is where I'm releasing a podcast soon with Maddie B. Webb. If y'all know her, she's so sweet. I'm so excited. She has 2.5 million followers, right? And her next level, and this is what happens with all celebs, like high level, high performing clients, is that you have created so much success from being scrappy as fuck that then you actually are tapped out and you actually cannot sustain your own business without the support of those gatekeepers. So 99.99% of the time, if you are seeking a gatekeeper, you're actually not ready for one. You actually need to do the work of healing and building on your own, and then get to the point of, and then the work is going to be letting those people in. So Taylor, I'm not exactly sure where you're at. You can tell me if this resonated or not. But that's what my thoughts are. Okay. Could I analyze Dua Lipa? So she is someone she's so funny because she is a goofball, but her persona is definitely someone that you want to be with, like sexually. What if you feel blocked when it comes to learning a new skill that will help your fame? So, Veronica, I think basically you just want to look at, like, what is your brain afraid is going to happen when you learn this fame? Like, anytime there's a skill that's going to lead to more vulnerability, your brain is going to perceive that as a threat. So look at, like, what is it protecting you from to not learn that skill, right? Like, and it really can be like, I'm trying to remember what this was the other day. There was something that I know what it is, but I'm not going to share. It's like this project that's been on the back burner for so fucking long that I just need to do. And my brain is like, no, 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 no. And just avoiding it at all costs. And when I sat down to do the first half of it, it only took me like an hour, but my brain was avoiding it because it meant a change and a shift in my life and a shift in my dynamic in the way that I am perceived and seen in the world. So anytime, like, that's where self-sabotage, like, that's the most quintessential self-sabotage, is your brain is just not going to want to do things that are going to, like, push you to your next level. So the first thing you have to do is just get really clear that that's what's happening. You feel like Dua's energy is so mysterious. So I feel like it'd be more be you and date you. Yeah, exactly. How do I go from being safe to be seen by 100 people to 100,000 people in 6 months? So really great question. You want to chunk this down. So our brains always, and this is like in the very first goal setting module of my mentorship program, is that most people do want to set a goal. If you only have 100, to be like, oh, now I want 100,000. That's actually just another way of your brain self-sabotaging you, because as a dreamer, as a creative, your brain is going to find really creative ways to sabotage you. And part of that is giving you la la land goals. So instead, we want to chunk it down and look at, like, a goal that actually feels like you could create it. Because anytime it's too big of a jump, your brain's just going to get confused and not do anything. So what I usually recommend is to chunk that down to either 2,000, 5,000, or 10,000 new followers. Because the thing about building a following is it's also just a rinse and repeat. Once you know how to get your first 10,000 followers, then you know how to just continue getting a new 10,000 followers until you get 100,000. Okay.
Can I explain the be you, date you, or be your best friend thing a little more? Yes. It's not in the starter pack course. Um, yeah, so I think what we want to do, Christine, is just get really clear on what people authentically, naturally see from you and want from you. I don't remember if I've ever coached you. I don't remember which one would speak to me the most for you, so I can't give you an answer right now. Um, but it's basically like for me when I was living in New York, I say that because that's like when and where I had the most friends because that's all me and all my friends from college moved to New York together. Um, it's like I was the friend that everyone came to for advice. Or like, and also people were always like, why do you Irish goodbye always? And like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was like, I don't know. It just felt like like, even though I was, and I just definitely, that was before I came out, that was before I left Mormonism. Like, I definitely was not showing up in a way that would have led to really authentic friendships. But I also always felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect for people between me and them where they kind of always just saw me in a different way. Um, I think I don't lean on people wanting to date me, but that is another one that is just true for me. Like while I'm dating right now, the issue that I'm having is that everyone keeps falling in love with me and I keep being like, no, you're not in love with me. I just help you feel safe and seen. And so you like the way that you are around yourself. So, but that's, I guess even that is not, that's more of wanting to be me more than like wanting to fuck me, right? Not that I'm not sexually attractive or things like that, but that's not necessarily what people lean on. So I would just see, Christine, like maybe start taking stock of how your dynamic is in your friend group with I feel like you maybe are partnered already, so that one might be a little bit harder to see, but maybe when you were dating or just different things like that, like seeing how people now, or are you the person who everyone calls not for advice but for like gossip, then you could be like the best friend, right? How do I consciously get into celebrity energy? Like, do you do it by affirming or something, especially when trying to snap into it in the moment? So, Nate, I would practice just existing in that state in all areas. And then have you seen the training in my bio, Nate, the How to Be Famous like masterclass that I have? I would recommend that because it's essentially like I forget what law it is, but there's this like law of the universe that like whichever energy is the strongest is going to win out and like absorb everyone else's energy. So something you could practice doing, Nate, is like sitting in meditation and practice your energy expanding beyond just your physical body. So everyone's body or everyone's energy can be measured. Your brain waves, your heart waves, like we actually all exude an energetic field that can be measured by science, right? And so the work about celebrity energy is creating such an authentic version of yourself that yours continues to expand and you don't feel threatened. So like I use this example a lot, but like when I lived in New York City, a lot of the time I would if someone came on the subway who I thought was kind of scary, then I would like energetically shut down so that they didn't see me. So that's the opposite though, right? Like when you're on stage, maybe that's when you want it's like imagining your energy extending to all corners of the room, all corners of the arena. That's something that like, I've shared this example before, but like I went to the grocery store here and there was this celeb there and I was like I want to talk to her, and so I was like let me shift this on and just like extend my energy and get to a place that then what ended up happening was she like literally turned to me and was like hi, and she's like I love how tall you are, and I was like thank you, same, and then she ended up like giving me all these recommendations for my son and all of this, so super fun. Okay, about the self concept of doing it without gatekeepers. Does this apply to wanting to model and getting an agency? I thought that was the appropriate next step, but maybe it came from my lack of self concept. So, Gabby, with modeling, like here's what I think. Modeling, I did a bunch of modeling in New York, mostly commercial though. So I do know that like the editorial world is different, but I do think that you need to approach it from both areas, right? And this is the same with acting. I'm not saying that you don't need an agent or you don't want a record label or whatever, but you also need to believe, Gabby, that you are the person who is going to get the modeling jobs no matter what. And if that is true, then what's next? It's not going to be relying on a gatekeeper, it's going to be getting those jobs yourself and finding that like agency, right? So I think it's like it's both, but if your brain is saying, "Oh, the only next thing for me is going to be to get that agency," that's not going to cut it. Part of this also though, Gabby, is like what's like making sure you have the best portfolio, making sure that you're fantastic at networking, making sure that you're, you know, up to date on all of the casting websites, all of that kind of thing. Got it. Yes, yes, yes. That's right, Christine. Okay. Do I have an advice for those struggling to make friends because of not showing people the real you, not feeling safe being seen? Yes. So Bianca, I know that I come across as very confident, but this is something I've really struggled with as well. And like for me, it was like people always did want to be my friend, but I really struggled to have authentic friendships because I didn't believe that that was something that was possible for me. So people would be gravitated towards me, but it felt like they wanted something from me and it wasn't reciprocal. So what I want you to do is to really practice like, well, let me back up. I think what we first want to do is identify like where these stories originated from. A lot of the time our friendship wounds come from our siblings, and or lack of siblings, or there's some childhood wound there. So the first thing that I want you to do is get really clear on where maybe this pattern started, and give yourself compassion for that. And then we also want to like really this is going to come down to you and it's really uncomfortable, especially when you've created a community of people that know you for a version of you that isn't real, that like you've kind of fabricated to fit in and survive, is to just start showing up authentically. I know it's like the scariest thing ever, but it's kind of this idea of like if you build it, then they will come. Even last week, I was thinking about, you know, one of my best friends just started a new job, so she's like super slammed. And then my other best friend is she's like traveling, and I just had this moment of feeling kind of lonely, and I just was like, oh, I wish I had more like authentic friends, and really just setting that intention the next day to like one of my favorite like influencers and one of my favorite someone that I had met casually was just like, hey, let's get together. So I think it does come down to setting the intention, but also like I feel like for me the reason that that manifestation happened so quickly was because I've done a lot of work of just showing up so authentically. Like if y'all met me in person, like if we were to get lunch, you'd be like, oh, you're the exact same person online. So being able to show up in that authentic way is going to create the space for those people to come in, even if it takes a little bit of a like jump start from you, if that's something you're new at. I can't figure out what my energy is or how it's perceived. I have a natural comic sensibility and I just go with that. When I put content out, I always think is great. Can't wait for the public's reaction, but it never hits or gets much engagement. How do I figure out where to start troubleshooting since I can't peg the issue clearly? So, Erin, I'm actually going to redirect you. So right now you're really focused on the way that it's being perceived instead of the content that you really authentically like. I'm curious if no one was going to be mad, if everyone was going to love you, if like you just like knew your shit didn't stink, then what kind of content would you be putting out? That's where I want you to focus on. Yes. So, Victoria, so the question is, would you have tips on being in your authentic celebrity energy when you're an overthinker? So, I think what you should focus on, Victoria, is the way that your body responds to things. So, I don't know. For me, this was not that challenging because I have a dance background and I've also put a lot of time and attention into like doing yoga and Pilates. But I would say, like, if there are grounding practices like that, or like breath work or like meditation, um, that can help you focus on your body, because there's this great book, The Body Keeps the Score, but your body is just an indicator of what's happening in your subconscious brain. So get clues from what's showing up in your body and take action from that place. Would I say visualization is a helpful tool for celebrity energy? Yes. How else can I be authentic to create a fan base on social media through music without just speaking through my lyrics? So, Taylor, people love a story. So, take them on the story of how and where your music is coming from, where the songs come from. And I don't know, Taylor, like there's different ways you can address this, but something that I see a lot with musicians is that people will only post their work when it's finished, and you are missing out on huge opportunities if that's what you're doing. So if you're someone who like is only posting like a produced song or like a music video, that's just like not really going to cut it. Now, of course, I'm speaking from the assumption that your music is very authentic and very good, because the music obviously does speak for itself, but then also just practicing the way that you're showing up when you're performing it on camera, as if the people really want to hear it and like love to be there. You seem so good at manifesting things in your life. Any tips? Yes. So I am very good at manifesting, and it gets quicker and quicker the more you set boundaries. So, and like, again, a celebrity is someone who likes what they do, how they do it, and likes themselves. That is something that has been really challenging for me, because I was raised in a religion that taught me to put everyone else's needs ahead of my own. I'm really like, at the end of the day, that has helped me to be like, I think all of my clients are like very highly evolved and like want the best for other people. So now I can just trust that when I'm doing something, then like it's in the best interest or best intention for everyone. And so I think that, manifesting a lot of the time is about getting clear about what you want and then shedding what doesn't work. Also, my best friend Shayna, she's a fantastic coach. Her name is Shayna Lease. Go to my Instagram and find hers, because she's fantastic, but she teaches mindset and manifestation through decluttering. And her shit fucking works. So what she does is she will tell you a certain area, like whatever you're working to manifest, if you go and declutter that area of your home and then just sit, then the good things that you want will come in. So like, for example, when I was working on, I mean, not really working on, but like, well, kind of, I was like, oh, I want to like work on romantic relationships and like dating. I realized I have this shitty IKEA bed, these shitty sheets, this shitty comforter. I have this like nightstand that my ex and I bought together that's literally like ruined because he left a wet washcloth on it at one point. And I was like, like my bedroom reflects my romantic relationships. And so I started to sell all of that furniture, and I bought new stuff and stuff that like really felt aligned and felt beautiful and felt like stuff that I want to keep forever. Literally like the next day, like Shayna and I go to lunch or go shopping on Friday. And then on Saturday, I like went on a date with this guy that I'm still seeing. And he's like so loving, so kind. Not that we're like, he's not my boyfriend or anything, but it was funny because, oh, and he like, I don't know, like she and I had been talking while we were like buying the sheets, that I was like, yeah, I really want to date someone who like, who cooks and who wants to go to the gym with me. And like both of those things, like on the first date, he was like, yeah, I'd love to cook you dinner this weekend. And I was like, okay, sure. So that's another just like hack. Okay. We got 22 messages. Ooh. Okay. I'm going to skip through these super fast. Oh, wait. Oh, maybe I'm caught up. Okay. Mars, her name is Shayna Lease, Leis. Okay, I'm gonna go through a couple more of these TikTok cues. Any advice for a memoir author trying to get my book out there? My book is amazing. Yes. So build an audience that's obsessed with you and then leverage that to get a book deal. You want to post content that you enjoy. I'm an artist, but I don't enjoy watching art videos. Same. I mean, I'm not a visual artist, but I will say you like make the content that you actually like to make, not what you like to consume. Thank you, Vera. Okay. Just need to hear how to tap into that authenticity tips. Yeah. So again, obviously this is going to be a plug. But if you want the course, today is the last day for the self-made celeb or the How to Be Famous starter pack. It's in my bio, gives you the 6-step process for creating this authenticity and then rinsing. It's a rinse and repeat process. All my clients use it, from full-time students to award-winning celebs. The gist of it, though, is that you need to get really clear on what the blocks are that are keeping you from showing up authentically. So ask yourself, Who am I afraid would hear what I have to say? Who am I afraid would be upset if I popped off? Who would be, angry, whatever? What relationships am I afraid of losing? That kind of thing. And then get your body to feel safe in that discomfort. So instead of just running away from the discomfort, really leaning into that. You can do that through somatic breath work. You can do that through yoga, through meditation. I obviously have my own processes that I teach my clients in my program. But there are so many tools to really get into your body so that the nervousness and the anxiety and the fear doesn't stay there. Okay, I'm so private. I don't have social media, but I know I'm meant for this because I feel this so deep right now. Yes. So I just want to say, like, if y'all scrolled back far enough on your Instagram, you would be like, on my Instagram, I mean, you would see, even though I was like trying, I was energetically not ready for it, right? It is a process. It takes time, but I just want to celebrate you for, is it, Kayleen? I want to celebrate you for even admitting that, because even admitting that you want to be famous is like the first part. That's the scary part. So, celebrating you for that. Okay. I think we are about out of time. Okay, I got 9K out of being silly, not taking it seriously, and I don't know how to pivot from that. Why would you want to pivot? If it's working, nail it, then scale it. Okay, got one more question on here. I have resistance to doing social media content creation because I have this belief that I don't want to be famous just for the sake of being famous. I'm so passionate about acting that fame would be an amazing side benefit of doing what I truly love. But of course, I want the fame platform to be able to impact others through my acting on a bigger platform. Yeah, so I just want you to like look at like, first off, like let's like, what if social media is just like something I want? Okay, I want you to get to the very root of what you love about acting, because whatever that is, you can also create in social media. My guess is that it's like, having been an actor, it's the connection, it's the emotional, it's the vulnerability, it's like all of those things. That's exactly what you get to do on social media. And the more of an audience that you build, it's kind of like, I want you to imagine if like someone was like, hey, I make a lot of money in like cryptocurrency, but I know I would make a lot more if I moved to the stock market. I'd be like, yeah, you would. You'd be you'd be creating multiple streams of wealth. The same thing with fame, right? Yes, you can just do one, but the ones who are the most, even the actors who are the most successful and like have the biggest pull right now and get the biggest brand deals are Renee Rapp, right? Are like the people who are utilizing social media. So start thinking about like, if you already were famous, you already were a celebrity, how would you be showing up to your social media then? All right, my friends, I got to meet with my business manager. I hope that you have an amazing day. Thank you for joining us, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
And that's a wrap on another episode of How to Be Famous. If you found today's episode to be helpful, then make sure to subscribe and leave me a review, or tag me on Instagram at Whitney Euland. Your feedback helps me to continue making empowering content. And if you're ready to be the next big thing and you want to take this work even deeper and work with me directly to become a self-made celebrity, then head to the link in the show notes where you can learn how to coach with me directly. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or gossip, then feel free to slide into my DMs. They are always open. I'm at Whitney Euland on TikTok and Instagram. I always love hearing your stories, celebrations, and wins. And remember, this is not about fame for fame's sake. It's about making a positive impact, bringing your dreams to life, and inspiring people along the way. Stay inspired, stay ambitious, and most importantly, stay true to your authentic self. Until next time, I'm Whitney Euland, and this is How to Be Famous with Whitney Euland.